Welcome to Let's Get Curious, the podcast for women and mothers seeking connection, support, and inspiration. We are friends, mothers, and therapists. Lori, a physical therapist, and Dorothy, a speech and language therapist. Together, we share our personal stories, including IVF, birth experiences, and navigating children's learning difficulties. Through our discussions, we uncover profound lessons for personal growth. Join us on this journey of curiosity, compassion, and empowerment. Welcome to Let's Get Curious. Hi, everyone. Dee Dee and I are back again today. And today we are lucky to have Paul Kesselman. He is the director and owner of Kesselman Clinical Associates. It is a group private practice located in Devon, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb right outside Philadelphia. And at their practice, Paul and his colleagues provide counseling for children, adolescents, adults, and families. The practice has a large focus on treating ADHD, autism, spectrum disorders, anxiety, and depression. The group provides individual, group, couples, and family counseling, as well as psychological testing and assessment. Paul and his associates are passionate about creating a space for patients to self-actualize and build strength through their counseling experience. When Paul is not helping families at the practice, he enjoys spending time with his wife and 5 children, 4 boys and 1 girl, playing baseball in an adult baseball league, doing public speaking engagements at area schools and community events, and being a regular podcast guest on topics such as anxiety, depression, parenting, and ADHD. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I wanted to reach out to you because of my past and everything that I'm still in with my daughter who has the ADHD diagnosis. And talking to other parents, it's just you get on these topics, and in those conversations, all the struggles start to come up that we're talking about, that we're dealing with, right? And so that's always kind of a consistent theme for me. And I found you and got to know you over a period of time. And I was like, Paul, we need you on, and with your area of expertise. And let's just say 5 children. You want to talk about experience with kids, right? With parenting 5 children. So Dorothy and I are very happy to have you here. So thank you for coming on. And before we kind of, dive into the questions that I have at hand for the ADHD diagnosis and others, tell us a bit more about yourself, Paul. How did you get into this line of work? Walk us down that road.
Sure. Yeah. So family-wise, I come from a long line on my father's side of people who are kind of in business and accounting and all those kind of things. So I thought as a teenager that was my destiny, right? That's what my grandfather did. That's what my brother does. All these things. So there was just one little snafu with that I'm not very good at math. So when I got to college, well, first off, let me rewind. Probably the most important part of how I got to be a therapist is when my parents divorced when I was pretty young, I went to see a therapist. And I remember it being a pretty impactful, a little strange. It was kind of the 80s, a little early for children to be going probably at the time. But I just remember it as very impactful to me and a powerful experience. So when I figured out that math was not my strong suit and got to college, I started taking a whole bunch of psychology classes. And it really clicked for me, just kind of thinking this way and interacting with people this way. This is kind of the way I conceptualize my world around me constantly. And connecting with the field of study of psychology just really fit right for me. So I took every course in the catalog for psychology when I was at Rutgers, and then moved on to sociology because that's the next closest thing in terms of being able to understand people and patterns of behavior. So it just really clicked for me. So it kind of went from there.
Yeah. Fascinating. And now you have your own personal clinic, yes? I
have a private
Philadelphia
practice.
Area.
There's 10 of us all together. I started it myself back in 2011, just me doing my thing, and kind of just added more professionals as we went along. COVID really spiked the need for a lot more of mental health, services. So we added a lot more folks during that, and we've just remained really steady, helping folks with anxiety, depression, all kinds of things. Yeah.
I know. And there's a lot of that, huh? I just hear what some of these kids, talk about, and of course, just what families go through. And I'm like, why does anxiety seem like it's so much higher these days than even like when I was a kid? I mean, I know I suffer from anxiety. There's no question about it. But to the capacity that I'm seeing it hit families. Why,
Yeah.
like, why do you have an idea of why that is, Paul?
Yeah. I think there's a few reasons. I think the information age is a double-edged kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Information is power, but information is also something that we have to kind of grapple with. And the growth and expansion of the internet through all the ways that we're getting information, up to the minute notifications these days. And especially when you're a child, you're still kind of figuring out how the world works and how you feel about things and what your identity is. When you're getting impacted by so much information, it's a lot to take on your psyche. So I think the growth of anxiety has been massive that way from information. I also think that if you've seen the book, The Anxious Generation, that talks a lot about screens and social media and how these
Yep.
dopamine hits that we're all getting from these phones constantly and the things dinging
Mm-hmm.
and grabbing our attention. I think that has increased anxiety as well, because I think the ability to self-soothe has kind of transferred onto a lot of these objects rather than true self-soothing that we did when we were younger, when these things weren't around. So we're not really learning to self-soothe as much as we used to. And emotional regulation is a really, really important part of dealing with any strong emotion like anxiety and depression. So it's something that we're not getting it as good at, and we're having a lot of
Mm-hmm.
attention taken away to. We're getting the quickest way to self-soothe these days. A lot of times is to go on social media, to entertain ourselves, rather than doing the old-fashioned way of self-soothing, which is a really important process for all of us to learn as a life skill. So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
anxiety has grown a lot because we just don't have the patience to kind of work things through and be resilient as much as we used to.
Right. And can you elaborate and remind all of us what are some of those older self soothing techniques that we used to do that we're not doing today with our children, as a
Yeah,
reminder to our
I
listeners?
I know I'm going to sound old-fashioned saying this, but I mean, but prior to all the gaming and YouTube and all the kind of things that we could get quick snippets of 5, 10, 15 seconds of a really exciting and stimulating response, we kind of had to be creative and build our own games and go outside. I remember building forts with my friend. We would be outside in the cold. I feel really old saying this right now. It's like walking uphill to the school bus 5 miles. But I do remember some of the most important parts of my childhood that I still think
Yeah.
about now about being resilient are being out, in our woods, building forts
Mm-hmm.
in 30-degree weather and kind of just pushing through rather than saying it'd be easier to go in and play a video game or go on YouTube or something like that. Because it would have been easier. I wonder what
Right.
I would be like if those things were around. But those were the opportunities to kind of, you see all these memes, from these days about kids riding bikes in the 80s, out in their neighborhood so the sun goes down. We did so much of that. A lot of that was about being creative,
Mm-hmm.
coming up with our own ideas, working together rather than sitting three kids at a table looking at a screen and kind of commenting on what's happening. We're so much more passive now in the way that we
Mm-hmm.
interact with things. And then we were so much more active. The brain needs activity. Kids need activity and engagement. We saw that during
Yes.
COVID. What happened to kids when they were denied that engagement? And it's still, that's why a lot of my practice is so busy right now. There's a lot of fallout from the lack of engagement and the lack of
Mm.
the creativity that we need
Yeah.
to bring back these days. So,
Yes. Yes,
yeah,
I totally believe it. And the phone has become the babysitter. I mean, even
yeah,
when I'm in the grocery store and I see these 2 year olds, 3 year olds like sitting in the front of the cart. I mean, again, I get it. I had to go through Whole Foods with, double cart, two kids
yep,
at the same time, having twins and everything. And you do what you need to do to manage, not to like take that away from anybody.
yep,
But it is this quick go to, here's the screen. And then you figure that these kids at age 2 and 3, I mean, that's how they're learning to self-soothe at such a
yeah,
young age, right? The brain is still old-timey. It still needs that movement, right? The brain
yeah,
hasn't caught up to this is going to work now in the
yeah,
future. The brain
exactly.
still needs the movement, the engagement, the connection.
Yeah. And we know the
Yeah.
difference as adults. We know the difference from when we were young and needed that stuff to now. And we can self monitor a little bit more and say, wow, I've really been on my phone a lot today. And put it aside. It's harder for kids to do it, definitely. And what
Mm-hmm.
you said, Lori, is so true. I mean, I think I talk with a lot of parents in my practice about, surviving things and getting through stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
listen, I think it's okay sometimes to give our kids a screen. We're out at a dinner. It's going to be a 2-hour thing. We're just trying to get through it and stuff like
Right.
that. But I think what we need to do is have appropriate boundaries, and we need to be mindful of when we're just passing that thing over automatically, because the swiping is happening automatically for us. And then what we're doing is we're automatically giving it to our kids. And then afterwards, we're looking at the situation. And when our kid's been on an hour, like, whoa, what am I doing right now? This is not the situation where I need to give it them. I need to be sitting down with them on the floor right now and playing a little bit, or having them do their homework, or going outside a little bit. So we need to be mindful parents. I'm sure a lot of the podcasts you've done in the past have talked about mindful parenting, and that's a big part of it. What we role model as parents, and kind of what we show our kids is important, and the boundaries that we lay down. Boundaries represent safety and security. Kids push back against them. They tell us as parents how mad they are that we set those boundaries. But in the end, we know that it creates resilience for them. It creates a feeling of security, and it shows them what are healthy things to be doing, because they don't know yet. They think they know because they're getting so much information from the internet about what's right and wrong. We need to be helping them, show them through our actions and experience what's right and wrong.
Well, I have this rule that I just recently for this school year, I started, where I was like, okay, they have their screen time allotment. They get to use it they have like an hour a day that they get to use however they want, all at one time, 20-minute increments, whatever.
Give them control. Yep.
Give them control. And then obviously if they want more, depending on, here now in the Pacific Northwest, it's dark at 4:30. I get it. We have to like change and adjust a bit, but I was like, not that you can't have more, but you need to come and ask me. I need to understand why and what are we going to watch and all this stuff. But I still set the rule. I was like an hour before bedtime. So 8:00, there's no screens. We do no screens an hour before bed. Of course, oh, Mom, this is horrible. This is awful, all this stuff. Well, guess what? A couple nights ago, one of my daughters knocks on the door as I'm getting ready for bed. Mom, I just have to tell you, I was really frustrated that you set this hour before bedtime rule down. She goes, but you know what? I'm actually grateful now. She goes, because I've been more productive.
What?
Yeah. She's been more, and now I think she's working on her abs. I do know that she's working on her abs and she's doing some exercising.
Her abs.
Working
on her. Wow.
She wants some. Yep. She's doing some workouts in her room. She's getting any stuff ready for the next day.
Wonderful.
And I don't know quite what else. We already had our yummy connection time and everything, so I was not going to open up that box and start another conversation because she's my little talker. But I was just like, oh, I'm like, wonderful.
That's
but
a
to
great
your point,
moment.
Paul, they need it, right? They fight back, but they need it. So
they need it.
There was proof. And those were her exact words. Mom, I'm being more productive. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I love that. What a great experience to
Chalk
share.
one up for Mom.
Absolutely. Gold star.
Most times I don't feel like I'm winning.
Good work. Good job.
Thank you,
Good
Paul.
job for
Thank
your
you.
daughter, too.
What I wanted to move into, Paul, and I find this come up sometimes just between parents, right? So when a child is given any of those diagnoses, ADHD, autism, just anything that comes into the home, should the child be told, obviously age appropriate, should the child be told their diagnosis? And what to do if mom wants to but dad doesn't, or vice versa?
Yeah.
What is kind of like the direction of that? Can you
it's a
kind of
great
guide
question,
me?
and it comes up a lot, and I'm glad you put that out for a question today, because it's an important one for lots of parents to talk about. So first off, in terms of just sharing the diagnosis, generally speaking, and then we'll get into when one partner feels differently than the other. I think that, as you said, age appropriate, age dependent. Diagnosis, the clinical terms, autistic spectrum disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder are big fancy terms. Right. I don't know if necessarily it's important to have that clinical term at a younger age. I think it's more important for a child to understand kind of what's going on for them, because a lot of kids that I see, and I know my colleagues feel this way as well, is that a lot of kids have intuition about what's going on with them. They have it at younger and younger ages these days.
Absolutely.
Specifically because of the information we just talked about that's out there. I mean, they know what autism is. They know what ADHD is. They see it in books. They see it in popular culture. And they know that they're really in tune with when they're struggling. And kids with ADHD in general seem, we see them being very empathic kids. They're very understanding of emotions and very sensitive. So they pick that stuff up. So I think for a child, when they're struggling with focus, attention, hyperactivity, for them to understand what's going on with them is very powerful. It can take down a lot of the distress, a lot of the shame that goes with getting a lot of negative feedback from the environment, because unfortunately a lot of kids with ADHD hear a lot of negativity. Stop doing that. Why are you doing that? Things like that. It's a
Very
harsh
true.
environment for those kids. I'm a big believer in self-esteem as our core. Your daughter's working on her abs. That's our core, right? We got to build that before we build the extremities, right? And self-esteem for all of us is the core. So if we're building our sense of identity and sense of self from a place of shame and not having self-understanding and ways to have agency to fix what's going on and work with who we are, because we're all different. We all are in different ways. All of our brains work differently. It doesn't matter whether you have a diagnosis or not. You send me a table from IKEA. Well, maybe not IKEA because all that stuff is hard to put together. But something basic, I put it together upside down. My wife looks at me. She's like, "What are you doing? This thing's upside down." I'm like, my brain just can't rotate the objects.
Right. Right.
It's better for me to understand that is something I have difficulty with, rather than just being in denial about that and not doing anything to help myself. So we want to support our kids, obviously. We do so much to support our kids and put things in place, sharing with them and having them have an understanding of how their mind works and where their areas of strength are, because everything has our greatest superpower is also our greatest weakness at the same time. That's the nature of life. We want to understand those things, and we want to have the ability to work with ourselves and understand what we need to do from an organizational standpoint, from whether they're a visual learner or an auditory learner, all those things. We want to be our best self, and it's hard to do that without understanding what's going on for us. Yeah.
Paul, could you give us an example of what words you might say? Like if you're the parent, because I know a lot of parents are like, great, yes, we want to say this. We want to explain to our child, but what words do we use?
Yeah.
So if you have an autistic child, for example, or a kid with ADHD or both,
Yeah. Yeah.
what language do you use to explain it maybe to a younger child versus an older child?
Especially for a younger child, talking about the spectrum of what comes with whatever that those struggles are. So, I mean, like I said, everything has its alter side to it, the opposite side of the coin. There are a lot of strengths that come with ADHD and all kinds of different things, OCD, ADHD, everything with ADHD or spectrum disorders, for example, there's the ability to have focus more than other people. If I sat down to do a Lego, within 30 minutes, I'd kind of maybe be frustrated and ready to walk away from it. Whereas you sit down and do 1,000-piece Lego and you can maybe finish it in one day and you've got that product there. So I think that really starting off in the conversation and focusing on how a child with ADHD's brain is a little bit different and can process a lot of information all at once versus other people can't is really important to understand. And then talking about where some of the challenge is showing up, being really careful about the language, not putting anything in black and white terms, not saying this is really good about your ADHD, but this is really bad, talking about it more and just this is the way it kind of organically shows up in your life to decrease any shame, but also give the child I think that's where the meat and potatoes comes in. The term ADHD means nothing to anybody. It's what underlies that, right?
Right.
So, if we're talking about a child that has difficulty with impulsivity, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit more today, how can we slow down? How can I support you to slow down? Your mind is moving at such a pace that your brain wants to do all these things, which is amazing about your brain. It's incredible. And sometimes that suits you well. Other times when you're, playing Jenga, you got to slow down a little bit and put the piece in slowly and carefully. So talking about times when that tendency will support you and sometimes where it's going to be a little bit more challenging. I think that's the gray area conversation. And I think kids,
makes sense.
Yeah. And I think if you put it into real terms, like how it shows up practically in their environment, that's important to them. Talking about how it's going to show up on the soccer field, how it's going to show up in the classroom, how it's going to show up with friends, that's their life. That's not conceptual, that's actual. So I think the younger kids need to hear it from what it actually looks like in the day to day. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can tell you when I was filling out all those papers to get tested and everything, I'm looking at this, I'm going, oh, well, that one's me. Oh, that's my husband. To your point, Paul, like all of our brains are so different and we all learn differently. We all take in information differently. And that's what we just have to empower our kiddos of just not getting lost so much in the diagnoses, but bringing to light. And this kind of moves me into like my next question, because you're right. The kids do have kind of this sixth sense. And they know, like, okay, I'm different. So, and it comes in at a very young age. I saw it with my daughter around like second, third grade. And what do you do when these kids then start to call themselves stupid? They are just totally defeated up against their peers, and now they're using negative self-talk because they can
Yeah.
see that they're slower or their challenges become more apparent.
Yeah.
How do you help them not go down that road? Because confidence is so needed, and just whether you have a diagnosis or not. So we are always fighting the confidence, especially getting into teens where we become really more self-aware and comparing ourselves to our peers. But then when you compound it with a diagnosis and they're using these terms that I feel stupid,
Yeah.
what do we do with that? How do we navigate that, Paul?
Yeah. I mean, first off, in terms of what I do in my practice and what my colleagues do is obviously we're going to help a child process that. Like, what does that actually mean? Because that's such a broad statement. That's such a general statement. We want to understand specifically what they mean. Do they feel socially stupid? Do they feel academically? Is it one subject? But kids tend to, overgeneralize at younger ages and kind of make a blanket statement like that. It's important to sort out exactly what they believe to be where they're lacking. But I think going back to what we just talked about understanding the individual aspects of everybody, there's so many different types of intelligences. One of the things that I love about this field over the past 20 years that it's been such a privilege to see is the way that we see about neurodiversity and we learn about it. And as professionals who I talk to, whether they're other psychologists, psychiatrists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, developmental pediatricians, we all talk about the individual aspects of every child, not just using one term to capture the child. So we talk about different ways that everybody's brain works and all these multiple intelligences and ways to approach things. And just like I said before, I am not great at putting things together, but I'm very attuned to people and emotions and things like that. So it's understanding kind of the yin and the yang of who we are, that we have all different kinds of strengths within us. Everybody has things that they need to work on and improve. That's a life goal for all of us. And accepting ourselves as who we are, trying as parents to really feed into the positive stuff that we see our kids do. With ADHD kids, it's really important to catch them doing those positive things, whatever small things they are, and really call attention to that and be specific about why we're proud of them and why they should be proud of themselves. And that helps to push back at the negativity that they feel inside and walk around with. It's really important for those kids and parents of those kids and coaches and teachers and whoever is an adult influence or even a peer influence to be positive and feeding in and really making these kids understand how incredible they are, how wonderful they are, because they are. They're creative. I also have my oldest has ADHD. His creativity baffles me. He's the kid that when the box comes in the mail and it needs to be put together, I say to him, "Hey, buddy, you know the deal. Dad is not
You're
good
up.
at this." And an hour later, I come out and it's built, and I just sit there and I'm like, "How did you do it?" He's like, "I just did." I'm like, "My brain doesn't do that. How did you know to put this part here?" He's like, "I don't know, Dad. It's easy. Isn't it easy for you?" I'm like, "Buddy, no, it's not. I literally can't do this." So really taking that time to illustrate and emphasize their strengths and what is so incredible about them, and then when things are not going so great, to be mindful as parents of our reactions to it because they absorb it so much, which is hard. I talk with parents a lot about putting their oxygen masks on themselves before they put it on their kids. Self-care, I'll be saying that till the end of time for parents. It's so key. As a father of 5, getting on this morning to do this, I was running around trying to escort one of my kids. My youngest daughter, she had unicorn costume on. I'm trying to shoo her into the car like a little duck. And I'm like, it's 5 minutes till this podcast. I got to get in here and get my mind right. So, the self-care is important. So when you're in that other zone with them where you're getting frustrated, you don't react as strongly because we know how many positives we have to negate the negative. So,
right. Right. And to circle back to my previous question, we kind of forgot to answer this piece about when the two parents don't agree about telling their child.
It's a great question. So I've seen that before in my practice. I work with a lot of parents to kind of, when the one parent does not want to share, I really want to understand why. I find a lot of times it's a lot of fears. It's a lot of things that they bring from their own childhood about rejection or shame or things like that and wanting to protect their child. And I completely validate that to the nth degree and understand that. But I really emphasize with them what we talked about before about, if you're in a situation where things are not going exactly right, wouldn't you rather understand and be able to get support around that and understand how to improve that, So I talk about, it's not about giving the diagnosis, it's how we approach talking about the diagnosis or the information we're going to give. That's the key. How we deliver that information is going to be really important. The tone that we set, the language that we use, and the way that we discuss it. It's not doom and gloom. There are so many positives, like we said, that are associated with this. So it's a real opportunity for a child to get on a different trajectory and feel good about themselves. The other thing that's really important too is, and I've seen this before, and it's really unfortunate when it happens, is when a child doesn't learn about the difficulties that they're experiencing, and then they realize it when they get older and they come to their parents and they say, hey guys, I think I have ADHD. Did you know about this? If you knew about it as a parent, you're put in a pretty tough position there. Now we're talking trust and security and some big picture things that we work as parents really hard to establish before our kids even come into this world. Right. So that is another area that we risk if we don't kind of give some information about what's going on. So when I talk about that one, a lot of parents are like, wow, I didn't think about that aspect of things. I'm so busy protecting them in the moment. I don't realize that later that could really affect our relationship in the future and our trust between us. I think, think about it. Put yourself in that position,
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Well, I'm dealing with that with Santa right now. Mine's 9, and a year ago, he was like, hey, Mom, tell me the truth. Is Santa fake? It's like, oh God, here we are.
Yep,
okay. And I did all the things. Yeah, I've been dreading and preparing for this, And so I did all the things where it was like, oh, it's just a way to explain the magic of Christmas. And now you're old enough to know. And I spun it as best as I could. And to this day, he's like, I can't believe you lied to me. I can't trust you. I can't believe you lied to me. And I'm like, look, he actually was a real person. He is St. Nicholas. This is what they told me to do. You didn't come with a manual.
Exactly.
I'm so sorry.
All right.
This is what all the parents do. I'm sorry.
Right.
And I owned it. I mean, I spun it and then I owned it. I'm sorry. And he's like, don't ever lie to me again. Yeah. Ever.
The ownership, that was great, though. And I love that, like that you were saying, it doesn't come with a manual. I say that to parents all the time. This job, this is, I really, truly believe this is the hardest job on the face of the earth.
Yes.
I learned 5 years of grad school how to be a psychologist and do all the things that I do and everything. That's in books, that's studied. There's, parenting is ever changing. We're ever adapting, and we're always a step or two behind what's happening with our kids, trying to keep pace with it. It is a really, really challenging, hard job. And we're not all going to be great at it and perfect at it. Nobody should expect that of themselves. So, to all the parents out there who are listening to this, and this is for myself included and my wife, like, we got to go easy on ourselves. We got to really recognize what we're trying to do and be mindful, but also, nurture ourselves and take care of ourselves and realize when we make mistakes. I know for myself with my children, when I've come back to my kids and said, wow, I really blew it there, that's been a really golden opportunity for my kids are just dialed in and they're looking at me, and it's really powerful for them to know that dad's not perfect and he's willing to be mindful of when he is making a mistake or made the wrong choice. That's where I feel like they learn the most with me as a parent. So just know that. Just know that, and be kind to yourself. Yeah. Go easy.
I think we all need to hear that.
Yeah. Every day.
It's hard.
It is.
And every day it's like, I'm messing this up. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're grinding, you're tired, you're running, you're doing so much logistics, you're trying to spend time. If you have a partner, if you're lucky enough to have a partner, if you're a single parent, that's really difficult too. I mean, of course, so just being kind to yourself, taking time for you, and not feeling like, we can't do this job unless we're in a good space, right? If you're depleted, this is a long-term job. This is not a sprint. Right. This is a marathon. So we need to be caring for ourselves. We really do. I'm a big advocate for that. I see that to so many parents, even though they don't ask. I'm like, hey, I want to take 5 minutes right now to talk about self-care. And they're like, I didn't ask. I'm like, you don't need to. I'm going to tell you because you're a fellow parent.
Well, it is the hardest job because you know what? It brings up so much within ourselves that we didn't even sometimes know was there.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that's the piece where I've had to pause and go, ooh, wait a second. This is my stuff.
Yep.
This isn't their stuff. And then, of course, if I do make a comment or get frustrated or whatever, be what happened in that moment. Yes, I go back, Paul, and I repair. And it shows that we're also human. right?
Absolutely.
When I turned 30, it really, really hit me where I was just like, my gosh, my parents are just trying to figure it out like I am all these
Yeah,
years,
my parents
right?
are people. They're not
My
superhuman.
parents are people too,
Yeah.
but also, as we were talking earlier, like back in my day, there was a lot of just, I had very loving, caring parents, lots of love in my house. But, it was a different time, right? And
Yeah.
both parents are out working. And so
Yep.
you have to get up, brush yourself off,
Yeah.
move on, right? Or because I said so. Well, mom, why do because I said so. Oh,
Yeah.
I always hated that.
Yeah.
And so like, that's where I'm also trying to like be different, do different with my
Exactly.
kids and just
Yeah.
show more of my human side, that I
Yeah.
too get scared or
Yeah.
frustrated or
Yeah.
whatever it be. But that's why,
Yeah.
that's what makes parenting so hard, is because you got to look at yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we know it. Kids make these authentic statements all the time, and we look at them and we say,
Yeah.
wow, you just blew my mind with what you said. They can sense when we're being genuine and authentic and when we're not, And you're right, Lori, like our childhoods were a lot of because I said so, because I'm the parent. And now we're in this day and age where that's not really, that answer is not, not how we do it now. We
Right.
talk more about things, we communicate, which means there's a lot more to consider. But those moments where you catch yourself and you realize, wow, something's coming up for me right now from my own childhood are very powerful. So I tell people, especially in relational therapy, that when you break an object, when you break a pencil or you break something and you glue it back together, it's never going to be as strong as it was originally, right? When it was produced, right? But the wonderful thing about being a human being and relationships is that when you have a break and a repair and then a repair in a relationship, it actually gets stronger. There's something built that is stronger in that relationship. And that's unique just to human relationships, which is really incredible if you think about it. But if you go back and think about some of your friendships or things that have happened in your own relationships with people, when you've talked about something and really sat down and discussed it and see where the other person is and kind of get to a place where you kind of afterwards kind of feel like you really understood each other's perspectives and respected one another, you're stronger the future the next time something happens and you say, oh, that's like that time happened. I want to be really mindful right now that this could hurt your feelings. I'm sorry I didn't invite you to that lunch the other day and it wasn't, that wasn't intentional, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, thank you, that did hurt, but I'm glad you realized that from last time. That really has a sore spot for me. It's so powerful. And it works that way with all of us. This is not unique to adults. We see it with kids all the time. I watch my 4-year-old with my 2-year-old kind of coming up and putting his hand on her shoulder and comforting her if something happens, and she does it to him. And they learn that from the get-go. So that opportunity to be authentic, genuine, and caring to one another and repair is so powerful. It's one of the things I love the most about doing this job. When people come in with problems, it's like, all right, well, how can we repair and make it healthier? And then they're thankful. So
when I'm trying to even just teach that with my girls, with being teenagers and all the girl drama that happens these days just again, like conflict resolution. I talk a lot about conflict resolution in my house. And again, like trying to look at it from somebody else's point of view. And
you never know what's going on with somebody else.
You don't.
We're so quick to label and judge things and kind of put people in a category. That's a human tendency also. We have to kind of take a minute, step back and consider other things and try and empathize. And then we let down our guard enough to kind of say, all right, I'll let them in a little bit. I won't, that's usually our own fear, keeping that.
Always.
At bay.
Always. That's always what, I mean, Paul, my God, as I would go through all this stuff with trying to figure stuff out for E and everything, I'm like, oh my God, there's so much of it is my fear and, fear of like, am I going to be able to figure this out? Am I able to help her? It's the fear of the unknown, which of course is never accurate. I mean, it's never a place to function from. And so, one day at a time, but with children with any type of challenges, Paul, I want to talk a bit about discipline, because there's moments even in my house that with this like kind of impulsiveness that may happen, or we just get like kind of stuck on that one track mind. Right. And I'll use this as an example. So I'm preparing dinner and my one daughter goes in to the pantry and I was like, hey, please don't grab anything. We're going to be eating in like the next 10, 15 minutes. I know, but I just want whatever. Right. So it's this one track mind, even though she knows the rules around, we're not going to eat anything right now. Dinner's going to be ready. But to her, she still has her mindset and it's just, but I get a lot of buts. Or you'll have these kids that become explosive. at times. And with these diagnoses, Dorothy and I have come to really understand that, due to like sensory issues, right? Sometimes the behavior that we're seeing is something that they truly cannot manage.
Yeah.
And so, but there still needs to be rules and boundaries around life for safety and all of this stuff.
Right.
So what do we do with those kiddos struggling around that discipline? Because you know that there's something more behind it. If they're, like I said, if there's sensory stuff going on. I mean, their behavior tells you a lot about maybe what they need, what they need in that moment or what they don't need in that moment.
Yeah.
But then how do you go about disciplining?
Yeah.
Because I have a girlfriend, and there's a big struggle with whether they give positive reinforcement, and again, talking like, oh, great job here, and that kind of goes out the window. If they do the opposite, and now you've lost, the iPad, or you've lost time here or whatnot, that doesn't work. So what do you do with the kids that you see this repetitive misbehavior happening?
Yeah.
And to manage discipline around that?
Yeah, great question.
Does that question make sense?
It does. It does. I think that it depends on a variety of things, especially when I'm thinking about kids with ADHD, because one thing I think about right off the bat is medication. You said about what they can control and what they can. Certain times of the day, medication, if they're taking it, is going to be, therapeutic and doing what it needs to do. And at certain times of the day, that medication might be coming out of their bodies and creating some real difficult feelings and difficult physical discomfort for them. So I'm always strategizing and talking with parents about, kind of how do you set your child up for success, and what are the times where if you're asking something of them, it's a little too much to ask, depending on what's going on there and their emotional state or how depleted they are from the day. So I guess broadly, I want parents to be thinking critically about kind of how they structure their child's day and what kind of demands they're putting on them. Because, for example, I mean, if you have a child that's taking a medication and the medication's wearing off at 4:30 in the afternoon and they're doing homework at 6:30 and they're getting super frustrated with it, they probably just don't have the attention and focus at that point to do it. So it's kind of like, it's kind of like spinning your tires in the mud. You're just shooting a whole bunch of mud all over the place, but you're not really getting anywhere in your car. So I think it's important to consider that and understand, like you said, are other things going on, like sensory things. I know for my oldest child, we have a kind of a living room that has a very high ceilings, and the acoustics are just absolutely terrible in there. You can't hear a person unless you directly talk to them, but also everything gets kind of magnified in there. So when we're in the kitchen and in that room that connects, everything is really thrown off. And for a long time, he would get very loud, and it would kind of irritate the other kids or even irritate me and my wife. And it took us about 1.5 years to realize that we needed to put curtains in there and other sound absorbing things to be able to make him more comfortable. It was a sensory thing that was going on, but we get frustrated and react to it. Be like, Jake, what are you doing? Like, snap and things like that.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you yelling right now? So I do think understanding that is important. And I think that where I'm going with that is I think that after the fact, like the example with the pantry, things like that, maybe at a quieter time, I'm a big advocate of sitting down with kids and saying, when it's not the heat of the moment and when you're not frustrated, like, hey, I was asking you in the pantry yesterday to not go and get that snack. I think we all know the rules in the house about that. Like, what was going on there? Kind of explain that to me, to understand, because maybe they're not eating enough in the afternoon. Maybe they're maybe that lunch is coming home and it's, they're barely eating any of it, or they're not getting, I think we need to understand a little bit more of what's going on, and then kind of like to set something up a little bit differently. We might be able to tweak the situation rather than it just being like, no snacks, that's all. Maybe there's a healthy snack we can choose instead of grabbing the chips or whatever. I think there's opportunities for potential compromise in there, but we need to have that information first from our child rather than just assuming they're just being oppositional with us for the sake of what they want and kind of pushing back, pushing boundaries. So I think the conversations are really important. Discipline, I mean, you said your friend kind of really tries to focus on the positive reinforcement. That's with parents, I'm always pushing for that first, try positive reinforcement, try and catch them doing the right things and really shed light on that rather than tell them when they're doing the wrong things. and attenuating your reaction for the wrong things. When it comes to safety and things like that, those situations, I guess, are a little bit more black and white. So if a child is being aggressive physically with another child in your house, whether it be a friend or somebody that's over for a play date or something like that, I really feel like the best thing to do is remove that child from the situation. If you have another adult there that can sit with them and just let them cool down. But we do know that ADHD kids, when they get into that state of anger, it takes longer for them to rebound and come back and process what's going on. So sometimes they just need to be separated from whatever the stimulus that is creating that, be it another child, being a Lego that they're struggling with, homework, whatever that might be. Just remove them from the stimulus and then deal with the discipline piece later. Because the emotional regulation, that part, like we talked about in the beginning, is going to be key. If somebody is in a state of anger and frustration like that, you can't have a good, healthy conversation about them, about cause and effect and things like that. You just have to help them calm down. You have to show them that calming down is important first to be able to process. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it has me thinking. And what do you do with the child? Like, they're old enough, right? To have, like, let's just say they're in their teens, and you're having trouble just disciplining in general, right? And they keep kind of repeating the same thing over and over again. They don't seem to be, nothing seems to be going in. And when you try to like talk with them of like trying to, like, to your point, like, let's pull you aside when everything is nice and calm, talk to me. What is happening in that moment? What do you do for the children who just don't want to talk, or are so not in tune with themselves that they don't even like have words to give you information to try to like put the puzzle pieces together?
Yeah. I mean, I think with those children, because they're so detached, it's kind of, we kind of have to role model for them a little bit and talk with, like, well, what can we do when we're really angry? What can we do when we're really fueled this way? How can we relax our body? I do so much of that in the counseling that I do, is teaching kids and parents relaxation strategies and mindfulness and all that kind of stuff. And kids kind of helping kids understand a little bit and be connected between their mind and their body, increasing that connection. So I think sitting down with them and even trying to do some of that together, I mean, you're completely disregarding the situation that just happened, and you're focusing on, what the child at that dysregulated state, and almost kind of like practicing it together. Like, we're going to take some breaths together. I'm going to hug you right now and put some like trying different things to just like physically take the stress out of them, and help them reset. Going for a walk, getting away from whatever. It doesn't always have to be words, it can be through action. Some kids just need action. And then through the action, their body settles down enough for their brain to kind of become reconnected again to their body and be able to get back into saying, what they think was going on or what they were feeling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, my gosh, I bet you just teach parents so much stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, Dorothy and I, we eat this stuff up and we do so much reading and research. And I mean, a lot of what you're describing is what we have learned to do in our homes to make them manageable and fun again, right? Because there was a part where it was like things were very heavy in my home, and it was just because I didn't know. And then as I continued to deep dive and figure things out and learn about the connection mode versus protection mode and repair and all of that, things have definitely gotten so much better. But yeah, I mean, I just think about, nobody taught me that per se. Even though I was in a very loving home, there wasn't conversations about understanding what state I'm in when I'm as a kid.
Yeah.
And so I bet you there's so much education that you have to do with parents just to teach them that piece so that they can become available for their children.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I have a lot of families that I work with, and this even happened in my family probably a year ago. We were just off the rails. Like iPads were getting a little too used too much. People were kind of snapping at each other. It was probably a time of year that, things were just more stressful and whatnot. And I, my wife and I said, look, we got to call a family meeting. We got to sit down with the whole family here and talk this through. And the goal that we had was to kind of talk about, what do we want as a family? What's important to us? And of course the first kids were, like early on, they're like, I want to play Xbox. I want my iPad. Yeah. It's like, okay, we know those things are important, but what's important between us? Like, we would throw things out like, how important is that you feel like your feelings are respected? How is it important that you feel like you're heard? So we started to put kind of these general themes into our conversation, and then we started talking about like what that looks like in the day to day. What do we need to do that? What does that
Yeah.
practically look like? And I think for a lot of families, it's good to do that every now and then, once a quarter or once every 6 months, to just sit down and kind of like take the emotional temperature, the report card. Kids get progress reports from school and all that kind of stuff. We
Right.
talk with our kids about that, right? Let's talk about how our family is doing. How do we think we're doing in terms of like taking care of one another and being kind to one another? How are we doing in terms of listening to one another and respecting one another? Let's kind of give ourselves an emotional report card here of those things. And if some of those things are lacking, if some of the things are great, fine, we're doing what we're doing. We can just stick with what's working. What can we change? What can we shift? It's a nice practical way. And I think it's also, as you said before, because we never really got to give that feedback. There was not a lot of democratic parenting going on when we were kids.
Right.
This is a nice way to make the kids involved in the conversation. And then you have a data point to come back to later when something is happening that's astray from the goal and say, hey, you said respect was important to you 2 weeks ago at our family meeting. Right now, you're being disrespectful to your brother. So remember we talked about if you want to get respect, you have to give respect. That doesn't fit right now. Like, it seems like we need to change this. And that's a very empowered place to come from as a parent, where you kind of like pull from that, from something they already said about what they want is meaningful to them, not what you're putting into the conversation that you think is important. Kids hear all the time from adults what they think is important. They're sick of hearing it, right? But when they hear something that's important to them, they stop and it catches them.
Well, and I think that makes a really good point of, again, like looking at your child's behavior and what is it telling you, and to be curious, right? Be curious and go back and ask the questions.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, turn those stones
the
over.
moment has like heated down and everything. Yes, because that's how you get information as well. I mean, because I could have a million reasons in my head of why I think they just did what they did, but the one that really is the issue could be the one that I'm missing. And so it's becoming curious and having that connection with your children.
And creating the opportunity for that too. I've said this in other podcasts, and I think it's valuable to think about these moments. Moments in the car, moments like just going places. I remember I would take my 3 oldest boys skiing, the hour trip up and the hour trip back in the car. Just decides when we're not, singing Wonka or something like that, whatever the hot thing was at the time. Now it's K-pop Demon Hunters or something.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
That's in my car too.
Yeah, it's on. I think I have that stuck in my head right now. Like,
I know.
I need to focus.
I even do the dances as I'm driving and my daughter's like, "Mom," I'm like, "I pay attention."
Right. But those car rides are such great opportunities to have the organic conversations about friends, about school, about how we treat each other. And can be more dialed in those moments because there's less distractions going on. We're not around all the stuff in the world that's dinging and notifications, all that stuff. It takes us back to those pure moments of just being with our child and sitting with them. So take those moments. Those are a great time to ask the bigger questions.
And the car to me feels less confrontational.
It is because you're both facing forward.
You're not facing each other, and it just creates more space.
I find that especially for boys, because we know boys use less words in a day than girls, just the way that the difference is, and are less apt to communicate on average. So I think that less threatening aspect to that situation. And even when I do therapy as well, some of the boys that I sit in the office with, I say, all right, what we're going to do? We're going to go outside and throw a football. I've got a grassy area where it's on that. So we're going to throw a football. And all of a sudden, like the kinesthetic aspect of just throwing the football, all of a sudden, I don't say anything and they start talking. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. To just see that they're opening up, and they don't even realize afterwards. We walk back inside and then they're quiet again. It's like when I put the football back in their hand, they start talking again. It just goes from there. So sometimes just those kind of situations really bring kids in general out. Tapping into whatever specific area gets them talking is a golden opportunity. We want to really, go after that. So,
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Paul, this was wonderful. Thank you so much. If anybody is in the Philadelphia area, I'm going to put obviously your contact information in the show notes. Paul, you also have given me a bunch of book recommendations that I'll also put in the show notes for everybody. But tell our listeners, if there's anybody in the Philadelphia area, how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, the easiest way is through our website, which is www.kesselmanclinicalassociates.com. I know that's a mouthful. And that's the best way to get in touch with us. You can see our profiles, what we do. It gives a real flavor for what the practice is like and what we like to offer parents and children. And probably from where I live, my 5 kids, you can hear them screaming from any place in the neighborhood too. So just give a wave as you go on by. You can hear our house is always very active. So that's another way to see me and get in touch with me.
I know 5 is a lot. I have a really good close girlfriend here who has 5 kids as well. And there's always something in movement.
Something is going on. There's always
Always
something. The
something
neighborhood
in
comes
movement.
here. There's always something
Yes.
going on. And a lot
Yeah,
of
there's
the
always
neighborhood.
something going on.
Yeah,
I
I
know.
tell a lot of the neighborhood families. They say, you want more kids at your house? I say, listen, it's already busy. There's already 5 here. What's more? It doesn't make a difference.
What's more?
Yeah,
What's more?
it.
Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
goodness. Oh my
So
God.
it's fun.
Dorothy, any final questions for Paul, Dee Dee?
No, I think we're good. I think we covered everything. I'm just excited that we got to meet you. And actually, no, I did think of one. I did think of one real quick. So, what do you say to the parent? They're in the moment with the screaming child,
Hmm.
and they're saying to themselves, I need to stay regulated. I need to stay regulated. Keep it together. Keep it together. And the kid is screaming and they're feeling themselves getting into that protection mode. How do we stay grounded and regulated in moments of distress
Oh,
when
great.
our nervous system is saying, flee,
Yeah,
flight, right? Like we're biologically
yeah.
wired to fight or flee, but yet we can't do that because we have to co-regulate with our child.
I mean,
So I know this.
I think you can join them in it. Honestly, I don't mean start yelling. If I say that, everybody's going to disregard everything I've been saying for the
Right.
past 45 minutes.
Forget
But what I
we
mean
keep
is,
driving past your house.
right. But I think exactly right. No waving for us. So you can kind of calmly say to your child, I'm feeling really frustrated too right now. You can
Ooh.
join them in the feeling and say, without acting on it, say, man, I think we're both revved up right now. This is a lot. This is a lot for both of us. We're both in this. We're both struggling right now. And I think that that's really powerful for a child to know that you can join in there. I think sometimes when anybody is so fired up like that, that all that energy's got to go somewhere. If somebody can kind of take and share the energy a little bit with us and validate it, all of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
it brings down our
Mm-hmm.
defensiveness and our fight or flight comes down.
Great
So
point.
I think that can really drop the angst in the room, and that can be a great moment to share with a child without reacting with all that. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times you'll see your child soften, and then when you see your child soften, you'll take that breath and soften too. And it's like, wow, how
Mm-hmm.
did we get here? Let's talk about this. This got really crazy, man. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of us
Oh, I
feel.
love
This
that.
feels bad for both of us right now. What do you feel? My face is
Yeah.
hot. What do you feel? My
Yeah.
muscles are tight. Just talking it out, making it real.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Authenticity, genuine.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, spending time in the moment. That's just such a great reminder that we all need, because we want to be done. We want to not engage in an activity like that. But yeah, to your point, let's just sit here a bit
Yeah.
longer and just feel it, and then it will
Yeah.
pass.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Right. Feelings are
Mm-hmm.
not going to stay permanent. I say to many younger kids who I work
Right.
with emotional regulation on, I know when you feel something so strongly in the moment, it feels like it's coloring every part of your world. It's going to last forever. It doesn't. Think about the rainbow of feelings and what you feel on a daily basis and all the kind of thoughts you have. Some of your thoughts don't matter, and they don't need to be
Mm-hmm.
acted on. Some are really important.
Mm-hmm.
That's the spectrum of what each of us goes through every day. Things will change, things will shift. You just got to kind of give it time and space to do that instead of feeling like you have to do something about it right away. You don't.
Mm-hmm.
You don't.
Mm-hmm.
You can move through things. And as long as you have people around you, parents, coaches, teachers, adults, who will sit with you in it and be willing to understand you, validate what you feel and want to work with you and support you, you can get through anything.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So make the time, moms and dads and
bingo.
parents and caregivers out
Yeah.
there, as hard as it is, but
Yeah.
that's what they need, right?
It'll
They
come
need
back
that.
tenfold. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not about the
Yeah.
quantity, it's the quality. Say that
Yeah.
all the time.
Excellent point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you want to run, don't just anchor in and become part of what's going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
I know.
Don't think you're
Oh,
superhuman. You can rise above it. That's when we're going to lose it.
right. Or
We think,
discipline it out, right?
yeah.
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 Go to your room because I said so. Or
Right.
yeah, I know,
Right.
because where everybody's just so hot and heated.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know.
I mean, you can
What?
say, let's take a break. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's right. We're going to call a
Mm-hmm.
timeout. We're
Right.
going to come back to this, but right now it's hot. Let's both take a timeout.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. While keeping your cool.
Exactly.
Hardest job. Yes.
Hardest job is
Find my
right.
zen. Find
Yep.
my zen.
Yep.
Keep it together. Keep
Yep.
it together. Keep it together. But I can tell you this, the more that you practice it, the easier it does become.
Absolutely.
And you,
it's like anything else.
yes, I've seen that improve in myself. And yes, some days are better than others, depending on how I'm feeling or my sleep or all of that. I mean, it's always a moving ball, but for the most part, yes, my capacity to stay regulated has gotten better with the more practice that I continue.
Exactly. It's like muscle memory
to do.
like anything else. Yeah, it's so true. Yeah. Once you carve it out, it's easier to fall right into that carving.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, and it's because it's what our nervous systems also need that reminder, right? It's our nervous systems need to rewire and relearn. So
absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, we got to be patient with ourselves. Awesome, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Paul, for giving us your time. I know you're busy with your 5 kids and your clinic and everything, but this was so great, so yummy. Awesome information. All your stuff will be put in the show notes. And thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.
Of course. Of course. All right, everybody. Until next time, stay curious. And as always, thanks for listening. Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
The information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and is based on the opinions and experience of Lori, Dorothy, and their guests. The content should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or a treatment. Always seek the advice of your healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you heard